If you've struggled with stress, balance, or burnout, and simply feel discouraged or even defeated, and if you're ready to move from force to flow and enjoy ultimate Zen success in your career, health, or relationships, then the Zen Success Show is for you. Your host, Carissa Sims, is an entrepreneur, corporate consultant, best-selling author, meditation teacher, and healer who has found her own Zen success. Here's your host, Carissa Sims. Welcome to this week's episode of Zen Success. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Mark Anthony, also known as the Psychic Lawyer. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Carissa. It's really great to be here.
Well, we're so honored to have you, and we can't wait to learn from you, hear from your wisdom, and about your books. Well, let me share a little bit more about Mark Anthony. And what do you like to be called, Mark? Or
my brand is Mark Anthony JD Psychic Explorer. And the reason for that, Carissa, is that I was in New York City at a media conference, and a bunch of reporters found out that I was an attorney. So they started calling me Mark Anthony, the Psychic Lawyer. And, and my agent, my publicist, and they were all like, yeah, this is great. This will get you on TV, which it has. But I do so much work with near-death experiences, afterlife research, ancient mysteries, paranormal investigations, that another media outlet started calling me the Psychic Explorer. And so we sat down, my team, and we condensed it all. Mark Anthony JD, which is my Juris Doctor degree, that's my law degree, a Psychic Explorer. But feel free, for purposes of the interview, just to call me Mark. That will work for me.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. And I'll try not to think of Dora the Explorer. It's you have your own identity.
Dora the Explorer, yeah. She's cool. She's
Mark
cool.
the Explorer. Yeah, that's great. I love that. Mark Anthony is a fourth generation psychic medium who communicates with spirits. He is an Oxford educated attorney licensed to practice law in Florida, Washington, D.C., and before the United States Supreme Court. Mark was also a notable graduate by the Arthur Findlay College of Psychic Science. He is a Spiritual Awakenings International Circle of Honor honoree, and he received the OMI Award for Best Psychic Medium. Mark also appears nationwide on TV, radio, including CBS TV's The Doctors, Gaia TV, and the Discovery Channel. And you definitely have that presence, that energy, but also that voice, that radio voice, TV voice. Yeah, so I can see why you've been on all these amazing shows. And he co-hosts the live stream show, The Psychic and the Doc, which I did have a chance to watch. You guys are a great team. Oh my gosh. It's so funny. I love it. And very touching. And you're helping so many people with that show, that call-in show. So highly recommend to my audience that you subscribe and listen to that. This Psychic Explorer travels to mystical locations in remote corners of the world to examine ancient mysteries and supernatural phenomena. He is a featured speaker at conferences, expos, and universities, which include Brown, Columbia, Harvard, and Yale. Mark Anthony is the author of 3 best-selling books. His latest, The Afterlife Frequency, has won multiple awards, ranked as one of the top books about faith, and was up for a Pulitzer. His other best-selling books are Never Letting Go and Evidence of Eternity. He is also a VIP executive contributor for Best Holistic Life magazine. So happy to be with you here today.
Thank you, Carissa. I'm honored to be here, and I've been looking forward to this podcast.
Oh, wonderful. And we were talking a little bit before we started recording about where you're connecting from. So do you want to share with our audience?
Well, I'm in Florida, but I travel all over the country. In fact, I'm on a U.S. tour now. I just got back from Houston and absolutely love the people of Texas. And week after next, I'll be at the Sedona Ascension Retreat. Then in May, I'll be at the New Living Expo in San Rafael, which is in the San Francisco Bay Area. Other appearances this year, I will be one of the keynote speakers for the 50th anniversary of the International Association for Near-Death Studies Conference. I'll be speaking at and presenting at the Omega Institute in October, and at the Edgar Cayce Association for Research and Enlightenment's Mediumship Summit in November. And I will be at another Spirit Fest Expo in Punta Gorda, Florida. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember when that is. I literally just got back from Houston. So it's like take everything to the dry cleaner so I can repack it to go to Sedona. But I'm doing a lot of traveling this year, spirit communication events, many lectures that I'm giving. And of course, along the way, I'm very, very honored to be on presentations on shows like this. So thank you, Carissa, for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And for our audience, if you can't remember all of that, you can go to his website, the afterlifefrequency.com, correct? And
Yes,
go
and I
to
invite
events.
yes, go to my website afterlifefrequency.com, just like my latest book, and you can see in the calendar of events where I'm going to be. And I also invite you to sign up for my newsletter, which will keep you up to date because I'm doing a lot of online events as well. So if you can't travel, you can catch me doing a whole lot of other things as well.
Yeah, okay, that's great. And I did just sign up for your newsletter, so I'll get updated as well. So in the Afterlife Frequency, you write about growing up psychic. So when did you first start realizing that you had this ability?
I was about 3.5 years old, and I started interacting and playing with, if you will, my invisible friends. Now, anyone that's been around toddlers, you know that they're always talking to somebody, some type of invisible friends. But both my parents were mediums as well. My dad was a U.S. Navy SEAL and an aerospace engineer. My mom was a commercial illustrator, but they were also mediums. And so they could see who I was interacting with. And I remember mom like, "Oh, he's got it." And dad was like, "Ah, geez, he's got it." So dad wasn't exactly thrilled, only because
Yeah.
he was worried about how I'd be treated.
But it was so cool that both your mom and your dad had that ability. That's amazing.
It really is. The two sides of the family could not be more different.
Okay.
My dad's side of the family were very waspy, conservative Baptists from Pennsylvania. In fact, my great great grandfather founded the Baptist church in the town where my father grew up. Whereas my mother's family came over from Italy. In fact, my mother's father was actually born in Italy. And the Italian side of the family looked at these gifts because there's a lot of people on both sides of the family that have them as the gift of second sight. It was a vision of the Holy Spirit. They looked at it as gifts from God.
Oh,
Whereas
beautiful.
yeah, they really did. And my grandfather in World War One, Italy was on the Allied side in World War Two. In World War One. In World War Two, that was Mussolini, and that's when the Italians started off as the bad guys. But in World War One, he was in the Navy, and his ship was in the Mediterranean, and it was torpedoed by a German U-boat. And out of over 100 men, it was a smaller ship. He was one of three survivors. And I remember him telling stories that he was hanging onto a piece of wreckage for 3 days. And he heard the screams of men being eaten by sharks. And he prayed to God. He goes, "Please, please, I'll devote my whole life to you, please." And on the third day, a Spanish ship, and Spain was neutral, spotted him and picked him up and two other guys. And he made his way from there to England, and he was having a pretty decent life in England. And then he came to America, where his family introduced him to my grandmother, because back in those days, It was sort of an arranged marriage, if you will. And so that's what brought him to America. And I always thought that was such a fascinating story. And he was a man of deep faith and piety throughout his entire life. And my mother and he were very, very close. And of all the grandchildren, there's one that looks exactly like him, and that's me. And I remember being a teenager when we'd go visit our relatives. We moved to Florida because of aerospace. My dad was in aerospace, and I'd run into some of the older relatives, and they'd look at me and like, "Oh my God," they couldn't, So it was always kind of, kind of a little on the woo-woo side for me.
Yeah. Do you feel that you have your him reincarnated? Do you ever think about that? No, you
No,
just
no,
have
because
like the
he,
look.
he was alive when I mean I was alive when he passed, and I've never felt that I
Okay.
was reincarnated, because um there's a reason we look like our parents. It's all
Mhm.
genetics.
Yeah.
But I mean, I definitely believe in reincarnation, and I have strong feelings and associations with certain eras throughout history. In fact, I'm giving talks about this in Sedona and at other locations throughout the country this year on the science of spirit communication, which includes reincarnation.
Mhm.
But what was really kind of amazing is my grandfather, he developed cancer and he was dying, and I was only 3 years old, and my mother went to go see him in the hospital. We had moved to Orlando, and that's the last memory I have of him, was being old and sick in the hospital. And I was afraid to get near him. And because they said, Mark, kiss your grandfather, and I wouldn't do it. And so when my mother was leaving, I ran back into his room and jumped into his arms. And that's my last memory of my grandfather.
That's so
And
sweet. I love
it
that.
yeah, it's I remember that. And this was at the beginning of December. And then it was December 13th. It was just not even quite two weeks later. We were back in Florida, and it was 7 in the morning. And my mother sat up in bed, and my dad looked at her. He was laying next to her, and she saw her father standing in the doorway. And he was wearing this fedora hat. He always wore a fedora hat. He was like this, dashing Italian guy.
Very
And
classy. Yeah.
she said he looked at her, and she heard his voice in her head that said, "There is something beyond this life, and it is wonderful." And then he vanished. And mom started crying. Daddy must have died. And my father was trying to console her. And she called her mother, no answer, her sister, her brother. She didn't know what to do. And about an hour or so later, her brother called her, and he was crying. He said, Daddy died. She said, when? He goes, it's 7 a.m. this morning. So he appeared to her at the precise moment that he died. Now, it gets even better, Carissa, because 20 years later, I'm in law school. And I was going to law school in Georgia. I did a stint. I mean, part of my law school education was at Oxford, but I was going to Mercer University, and I was supposed to go home the following day. And I thought, oh, what the heck? And I was driving this clunker old van, and so I I drove. It's about a 7 hour drive. Thought I'd surprise my parents. So, and it was freezing cold, and I was wearing this red flannel shirt. And that Halloween, I'd been Indiana Jones at the law school Halloween party, so I'm wearing my fedora hat. So I pull up into my parents' driveway, and I walk into the house, and I open the door and I go, "Hey, I'm home." And my dad's reading a newspaper, and my mother screamed and ran out of the room. And I'm like, "What's with mom?" And dad goes, "Well, your mom, because both my parents were psychic, so weird things were not unusual." So I brought my suitcase into my room and I was unpacking it, and all of a sudden there was my mom in the doorway. And I'll never forget this, Carissa. And it's kind of hard for me even to talk about it now. She had tears in her eyes and she said, "You know, my father always wore a red flannel shirt this time of year because he was a produce vendor. And he always wore a red flannel shirt." And she said, "When you walked in the door with that shirt and that hat on, you looked exactly like my father when he appeared to me when he died 20 years ago today." It was December 13th, 20 years to the day. Now, this is what I call spiritual synchronicity. Things
Mm.
like that happen for a reason. I mean, I had no intention of going home that day. I thought I'd get up early on the 14th and drive, but all of a sudden it was in the mid-afternoon, and I thought, what the heck? I'll go see mom and dad, and I drove there, and I just happened to be dressed and looked just like he did when he appeared to her. So for for the benefit of all the listeners, when things like that happen, don't just discount it. Realize that there is no such thing as a coincidence, but there are synchronicities, and things like that happen for a reason. So when something like that happens for a reason, pause, take a moment, take a deep breath, assimilate it, process it, and then feel, what does it mean to me?
Mm. Mhm. Yeah, that's important to not dismiss it, really take it in and feel it. And you did that at that time?
Oh yeah, I mean, when mom told me that, because I knew full well that her father had appeared to her. I mean, I grew up in a family where seeing spirits was not a weird thing. I mean, it was like, we'd be eating dinner and be talking about, oh, I saw a spirit or this came through and all that. But this was a particularly uh, impactful connection between my mother and her father because they were so very close, and
Mm.
it meant a lot to her. So it's interesting that we're talking about this because the thing is, Carissa, I don't think I've ever told that particular story in an interview before. So
Interesting.
there must be a reason. There must be somebody out there that's experiencing
Mm.
something like this, that needs to understand that no, you're not crazy. No, it's not a coincidence, and it's okay to have these experiences.
Yeah, that's amazing. Another thing that I find so fascinating, I mean, I feel like your grandfather's life and your family could be a movie. I mean, an exciting movie. Like I'd be on the edge of my seat. But there's also this aspect of him connecting to God and saying, I will serve you, just help me, save me. And then the ship coming and it's like, he was saved so that you could be here and help all these people. I mean, do you ever think about that? Like your ancestors, like almost dying, and it's like barely making it, and so that you can be alive here today and be of service.
It's yeah. I don't lay in bed at night, thinking of my place in the universe, but the way you put it that way. But this applies to all of us
Yeah.
because when you look at historically, the average lifespan in the United States in the year 1900 was 45. And it's because of the epidemics, the pandemics, the lack of vaccines. And I don't want to get all political, but if you visit graveyards and start looking at tombstones from before the 1960s, you see so many graves of infants and young children who died
Mhm.
from diseases which we now can control through vaccination. So, the evidence, if you will, this is the lawyer and me coming out, is etched in stone. But the thing is, there's a reason that a chain of events occurred, certain people survived, that all of us are here now. And so yes, that may apply to me, but it also applies to you. It applies to everyone who's
Good point.
listening to
Yes.
this.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. that you are significant to everyone who's listening here, and there's a reason why you're here.
Every
So,
life matters. Every life counts. It does. And not everybody's always here for good purposes. I mean, the dark energies, people talk about demons and devils. And I was just on a Discovery Channel show called Destinations of the Damned, and, paranormal investigation at an abandoned sanatorium in Indiana. And we were filming it at midnight, and it was as creepy as can be. And I remember they were talking to me, and bats are flying around behind me, and the film crew was freaking out, and it's funny because I didn't see the bats because they were behind me and they were attracted to the lights that they were using in this place. And bats don't bother me. I mean, people say it's so funny because I had a friend from Germany who said a bat will build a nest in your hair. There's this old stare about, and that's assuming you're going to stand there long enough to allow a bat to construct a dwelling in your hair. You know what I'm saying? How about just grab it and but all joking aside, um, there are people, and here's where I will get political, like the Vladimir Putins of the world, who are evil, and they are here for a reason too. Okay.
mhm,
And perhaps what we are supposed to learn is how we react to those people.
mhm,
Because I had this discussion actually with Shirley MacLaine, the living legend, a two-time Academy Award winner, I believe, and I know she's won at least one, possibly two. I mean,
yeah,
she's an
a
icon.
legend. Yes.
And she got into a lot of trouble in the media because she was talking about the Holocaust, and that was a karma people went through. And I asked her about that, and she said, I didn't mean that a particular group of people deserved it or went through. She said that was part of a larger karmic plan.
Yeah, collective. Mhm.
A collective, yes. But it was taken out of context, and so we did get a chance to discuss that because you wonder so many times, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, I work a lot with Helping Parents Heal, a beautiful organization.
Mhm.
I can't say enough good things about the beautiful healing work that they do.
And
And
that's
so
how I got referred to you through Jacob Cooper. He
Yeah,
told
and
me about you.
Jacob was at the last conference. He was one of the speakers.
Uh-huh.
Jacob is a wonderful luminary, spiritual teacher. He's one of the good souls, the good energies that walk this earth. And parents will look at me, and because I do readings to connect them. Why did this happen to us? Why did this happen to happen? Why did this have to happen?
Mhm.
And there's really never an easy answer. But what I have seen, Carissa, is when something horrible happens, like the death of a child, it's a proverbial rock falling into the proverbial pond in the concentric circles. And those circles affect so many different people. It may trigger the parents to start work in helping other parents heal. And that's how that organization got started through Elizabeth Boisson and Irene Vuvalidis. They lost children and they said we have got to help people. It may start research into some of the diseases that strike down children.
Mhm.
Mothers Against Drunk Driving is an organization that was founded in response to children being killed by drunk drivers. It
Mhm.
can also, on a more personal level, trigger someone to embark on a very spiritual journey. And so, yes, when a terrible thing happens, there's nothing we can do about the fact someone we love has died. But, Carissa, what we can do is change how we react to it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so beautiful about all those wonderful feelings of service that can come, or their spiritual ascension that happened to my friend who lost a daughter, and she lives in San Francisco Bay Area. She started a school called Up Academy after her daughter died, and it was in honor of her. And it's such an incredible place because she had cerebral palsy, her daughter did. And so it was meant to integrate all levels of disability, ability. So it was all in the same school. And yeah, so it's wonderful. I mean, you're talking about darkness and bad things happening. I think it's just, I don't know. I don't mean to minimize it, but it's part of our learning. It's part of our ascension. It's like we almost have to, not have to, but a lot of us go through that dark night of the soul to see the contrast. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think that we grow in response to adversity.
Mm,
If everything were wonderful all the time, well, that would be the other side. And
hmm
by me saying this, I'm not in any shape, form, or fashion encouraging anyone to cut their life short because they think it's better after you die. You're here for a reason, and every day that we're alive is a privilege. Although many days it does not feel that way, and you have to make each day count in your own way. And if everything were fluffy and bright and, all unicorns and rainbows and all that, what would be the motivation to improve yourself, to evolve spiritually, to become more compassionate, more charitable, more successful, the Zen success? There would be no motivation for that. And the dark night of the soul is a dreadful thing, but it's something we all must go through.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. Well, I want to go back to you growing up with psychic parents. So they were just having these conversations, seeing dead people and spirits, at the table, and but they never thought about making it into a career or anything, right? They weren't. Were they counseling other people or sharing this information, or was this like a secret in the community that you guys had?
Kind of all of the above. Um,
Okay.
my mother was very open about her abilities, and
Okay.
she would talk to people and she'd make connections for them and give them readings and my dad kept it very much to himself. I mean, he'd been a Navy SEAL, okay,
Okay.
and then he was an aerospace engineer, and that is not exactly the forum where you talk about, oh, I see auras and I see dead people.
Yeah.
But he would use his abilities in negotiations and things like that, and as part of the skill set. And
That's awesome.
and I have
Yeah.
to admit, when I was practicing law, I did too. But the thing is, we all have a skill set, and that was part of mine. Other people have other skills, but my mother in particular, she was a mother and a homemaker, and unfortunately, she was plagued with a lot of horrific illnesses.
Mm.
So a lot of her life was spent coping with very, very physically draining, I mean, horrific things. But if you
Mm.
met her, you would never know it. She
Oh, she didn't
always
talk about
dressed to
it.
the nines. She was
Oh,
funny. Her name was Jean, but everyone called her Jeannie. And when Jeannie entered a room, you knew it. Okay, it's like it got lighter, brighter. She had this
oh.
infectious laugh, and she was great storyteller, and she was just an amazing person. And I remember not long before she died, she was reflecting on her life, and she said, "Sometimes I feel that I just really haven't accomplished anything." That my life didn't even matter. And I remember saying to her, "How can you feel that way, Mom? How can you say that?" And when she passed, we, my family, we had her funeral and her celebration of life at a Catholic church, and hundreds of people showed up. And everyone came up, "Your mother did this for me. Your mother made me feel good. Your mother," I mean, and I remember just looking up and saying, "Now do you see, Mom, the difference you made?" it was astounding. I mean, somebody came up to me and said, I mean, he goes, they don't get this much at Christmas here, you know?
Yeah.
And my mother was, she was gregarious and outgoing, but not an arrogant
Mhm.
or unkind person. She did it through her love, her compassion, and in her way, she changed the world in her corner of the world. And her life is a testament that we all can do that. I mean, not everybody can be a Paul McCartney, or an Albert Einstein, or somebody that's so a Jimmy Buffett, or some prolific writer. But when we affect people in our world, we're that pebble, and our concentric circles are touching people, and those circles touch other circles. You may not even realize it, but you may save somebody's life. Let's say you're sitting on a park bench. And the reason I'm thinking this because I saw Forrest Gump the other day.
Oh, cute.
But the movie, he's sitting on the park bench, he's talking to people. But let's say there's somebody who's very distraught, and you give him or her the time of day, and you listen to that person, and you show some concern. You don't have to come up with solutions. You don't have to give them money. You don't have to do anything other than to just validate that person. You don't know if by giving that person a few moments of your time that you may have saved his or her life. Maybe they were so depressed, distraught, they were going to go home and put a bullet in their head. But somebody actually took the time to acknowledge them. I always stress to people, for the elderly people in your life, your grandparents or elderly friends or uncles, great aunts, pick up the phone and call. Don't text, call. Also, send a card. What do elderly people get in the mail? Bills, okay? Bills and junk mail. Do you know how nice it is for an elderly person to get a card, a I'm thinking of you card in the
Mhm.
mail? It doesn't take a whole lot of time. It doesn't really take much time at all. But in a phone call, just to validate somebody. So I cannot recommend doing that enough.
Yes, that's beautiful. Did your mom show up in spirit form at her funeral, or she come to you later?
She did. She comes to me quite a bit, and the thing is, I was so distraught, um,
Oh,
but
mhm.
I was feeling her. But what happened? I don't mean to laugh. Excuse me.
Okay.
I need a sip of water.
Yeah, me too.
It was a couple weeks after her service. I was coming back from court because at that time I was a senior partner of a firm. And, my whole focus in life was practice law, materialism, all those left brain, go, 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 motivations that are not negative. I mean, it's, that's what makes the world go round economically, I guess. And so I'm driving back from court, and I started feeling one of those waves of grief hitting me. And
Mm.
I thought, all right, I better pull over. I pulled over into this convenience store parking lot, kind of farther out, because I didn't want to walk into my firm in tears, even though it's healthy to cry. And we can talk about the health benefits of tears if you'd like. But I was sitting there in my car, and I figured, let me get my composure. And all of a sudden, this flash of light goes off in the car, and I look to the passenger side, and I saw my mother's silhouette in a silver white light. So now I'm trying to process this, and her voice fills my mind's ear, and I hear her say, Mark, you've been given the gift of mediumship so that you would not be crushed by grief, but now you must help those who are suffering with their grief. And I'm trying to process this, and I'm breaking out into a sweat from head to toe, and then I hear her voice again, and she said, your life's mission is to help people understand that the divine power people call God exists, that the afterlife, heaven, whatever you want to call it, exists, that souls are immortal living spirits, that humans can communicate with souls, and that we will all be reunited in the light that you call God when it is your time to leave the world. So now I'm soaking wet, and all I could see, I sunk back into my chair and I said, on my seat, and I said, all I could say was, okay. And Carissa, I was so overwhelmed. I'm sitting there, and my first thought was, I can't tell anybody this. They're going to think I'm insane. I mean, people already knew I was weird. I mean, in the practice of law, I seem to know things about people, and that I didn't. But this was like major, and so my first impression or instinct was to suppress it, and then I realized my life had just changed, and it was never going to go back the way it was. And boy, did it change. So I didn't, come out of the cosmic closet gently. It's like I got flung through the door hinges, door jam, and all. And it set me on a completely new trajectory in my life. And I've never looked back.
How long ago was that?
19 years ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
19 years ago.
Yeah. Wow, what a gift. And and so you had all these gifts going on in your life, and even what made you want to be a criminal attorney?
When I was in my teen years, I wanted to go into the clergy, which is not an unusual thing for mediums. We're drawn to the spiritual,
Mm,
but I felt it was too constricting,
mm.
and I didn't like the dogma, and I didn't like, you can't do this, and you're bad, and original sin, and all this gobbledygook. Um, so I went into law. And it's funny because thinking there's too many rules and regulations in the clergy, so I go into law talking about rules and regulations. But because I've always been a natural public speaker, I like to write, I like to help people because both law and mediumship are about helping people. Lawyers do help people. You go to a lawyer when you're in over your head in some type of situation, either criminal or civil. And I started off as a prosecutor, then went to criminal defense, and then my practice grew into doing complex civil litigation, brain injury cases. And then both jobs were about evidence. I mean, certainly an attorney needs evidence to substantiate his or her case. Likewise, a medium must present legitimate evidence from spirits to verify and guarantee the authenticity of the contact. So, in the practice of law, other attorneys saw pretty quickly that I seemed to know things that I had no basis or reason to know. And it did come in handy in trial and jury selection, but it it became crystal clear that when my mom came through to me, that I was to take this skill set and now transfer it over into my spiritual work. And like I said, I've never regretted it. And what's interesting is right after that, I started working on my first book, Never Letting Go. But I found that running a law firm, it was too much. I mean, it was just, it was, I don't want to call it a burden, but I said, I need to get out of this. And then this elected official offered me a job at a government agency to where I'd be supervising court operations. So now I was free from the practice of law, which is like a 24/7. And then my book was coming out, or it came out, and my manager, who's still with me, Rocky, she booked me on an appearance on MSNBC in New York City, and it was cool because we were at 30 Rock. We're in the studio next to where they were filming Saturday Night
I've
Live.
been there.
Oh
I
my
went to,
gosh, yeah, I know.
yeah,
It was
I've
like,
been
oh my
there.
God,
Conan
yeah,
O'Brien show. Not
yeah,
interviewed myself, but yeah, I went to Conan
yeah.
O'Brien there.
Yeah, and so there it was, and then from there we went to Boston because she got me a speaking gig at Harvard, and so it's a couple weeks before Christmas, and all of a sudden my cell phone rings, and it's the elected official, and he's like, I'm catching all kinds of grief from, a particular party that I have a psychic on staff and you're missing too much work. And I said, yeah, but this is all vacation time. I'm taking off. And he's going on and on and on. And I said, let me make this very simple for you, sir. He goes, how so? I go, consider this my resignation. And he said, okay. And I remember I hung up my phone and I looked at Rocky and I go, oh my God, I just quit the practice of law. And she said, Mark, where are you? And I'm looking around, I go, Harvard. She goes, what are you doing in an hour? Well, giving a lecture about afterlife science and signing copies of my new book, Never Letting Go. And she said, don't you think this is exactly where you're supposed to be? And that's how I left the practice of law. And I have never regretted it and never looked back. And law was it was very good. I mean, and I did quite well with it, but I always knew I had to do something more spiritual. So it was all there, and then it opened up.
Yeah, that's so interesting how the universe and your mom supported you and kind of like pushed you out. That was it. That's amazing. But sometimes they have psychics that police departments hire. I mean, they have psychic detectives that are involved in the case. Did you ever, or do you ever get hired for
Yeah,
that
I've
aspect?
assisted on a number of cases. In
Oh,
fact,
okay.
when I was on the CBS TV show The Doctors, which is produced by Dr. Phil, they had me do a cold case, a reading for a family in a cold case murder, and it would
Wow.
take way, 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 way too long to go through
Oh,
everything.
yeah.
But the information that I gave the family led to the police catching the killer.
Oh
And,
my gosh,
and
right
so
there live on the show. Amazing.
well, it wasn't right there. It was the information I gave them, and then after the show, they went back to their state,
Right.
told the police about this, and then they started. Or what had happened was, it was a brutal murder of this wonderful young woman. I mean, she was the nicest person in the world, and some creep murdered her. Okay,
Hmm.
raped and murdered her. And
Hmm.
so the police found DNA at the scene. Well, I didn't know any of the details because I always tell people I don't want to know anything before a reading. And during the reading, her spirit came through and gave a number of things and said the police must broaden the parameters of the DNA testing and that he will be caught, but he'll already be behind bars on an unrelated charge. Now, there's about 30 other things. I'm just giving you the quick ones.
Hmm.
Long story short, the family goes back to Arizona, tells the police this. They now use what's called the familial DNA test, which had never been used in Arizona before.
Okay.
Only states
And
at the
what
time.
is that? What is that?
The familial DNA test broadens the parameters of the search to identify close relatives of the person from the DNA sample. Okay. And immediately they found a match to what appeared to be a brother. And lo and behold, this guy was in jail, but they knew that it was his brother that would have been the closer match. And they found his brother also in jail, in another jail, who had just recently been arrested for his fourth drunk driving charge. So, just as her spirit said, he'll be in jail on another charge. And they found a direct match.
Oh my God, from one of the brothers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and the spirit is the one that guided all of this. And there have been other cases as well. In my book, The Afterlife Frequency, I write about how information a spirit gave me actually changed a law in the state of Illinois, which is now being adopted by every other state in the country.
Oh wow. What is that?
It is the conflict of interest for a coroner. I was doing a reading for a woman, and her daughter had died her boyfriend was with her, and she started getting very, very sick, and she kept asking him to take her to the emergency room, and he wouldn't do it. Not because he was, trying to kill her or anything, but
Yeah.
he was too busy playing with his friends and partying, and so she died. And the coroner for that county was his mother, and she said that it was just natural causes. And the young lady's family, who I did the reading for, were like, well, wait a second. What is the mother of a suspect doing the coroner's investigation for? She should have conflict of interest out, and they brought in an independent coroner. And there was no conflict of interest statute for coroner. And she said, I've tried everything. I can't get through to the Illinois Supreme Court. I can't get through to the legislature, and everybody blows me off. And then I realized a year before that, I had done a reading for a member of the Illinois State Senate whose son had died from an accidental drug overdose. And I said, I know exactly who you need to talk to. So it's as if the spirits, her daughter and the senator's son, put them together, and within a year, this guy had gotten a statute for a code of ethics for coroners, including a conflict of interest recusal. I know that sounds very technical, and it is, but I mean, that's like saying, okay, you get murdered, and then the murderer's father is the police chief and
Right.
says, no, it's not murder. It was the same situation.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's helpful to have an analogy. You could tell my mind was just like glazing over. Like,
Well,
okay.
yeah, but see,
Yeah,
these things are very, very important
they
too.
are very
So
important.
people can find out about that in the Afterlife Frequency, because I write my books like they're novels. I want people to be engaged. There's a lot of factors. So I've worked with police. I'm also working with Dr. Gary Schwartz on one of the research mediums for the Soul Phone Project.
Mm.
I'm not at liberty to discuss what we did there because of a non-disclosure agreement,
Hmm.
but I do a lot of work on the scientific end. So I'm not a airy fairy granola psychic, and for all those who are, that's really wonderful. But I'm all about the facts and the evidence, as well as the spirituality and the healing component.
I'm an airy fairy one. Okay.
There's room for us all.
Yes, of course. Interestingly enough, I just interviewed Dr. Mark Pitstick, and I think
Yeah,
he's
he's a friend of
involved.
mine.
He's a
Yeah.
friend of yours. Yeah,
Oh
he's
yeah,
involved
real good friend. Yeah,
with
I can't say enough good things. It is such a blessing to know Dr. Pitstick. He is
mm,
such a great guy. And
he's
he's working directly with Dr. Schwartz on the soul phone. And it's remarkable. And I believe within our lifetime, we will have technology that will tune right on into the other side.
Oh, that's amazing. I wanted to talk about the soul for a moment. What is the soul, and how do you distinguish between a soul and a spirit, or they're the same thing?
For me, they're the same thing. It's just
Okay.
the vernacular. Other people seem to make a difference. In the realms of science and psychology, the consciousness, the who and what we are, it's called consciousness. In matters of faith, it's referred to as a soul or a spirit. And I developed the electromagnetic soul theory, the EMS, to describe what we really are, which is pure consciousness, a soul and a spirit that is eternal electromagnetic energy.
Mhm.
And everything's made of molecules, which are made of atoms, which in turn are made of electrons, protons, and neutrons, which in turn, on the subatomic level, are composed of a quantum, which is where we get the term quantum physics. So everything on the subatomic level in the material universe is made of the same form of electromagnetic energy. And Carissa, that means you and me and the chairs we're sitting in, the air we're breathing, the light we're seeing, the radio waves this show is being broadcast on, the surface of Mars and
Mhm.
beyond are all the same form of electromagnetic energy. They just all
That's
vibrate at
cool.
different frequencies.
I
Yeah,
was going to say the cool masks behind you that I really
all
love.
the cool masks. Yeah,
Yeah.
now you've got the electromagnetic sphere. It's called a Tesla sphere back there, which is
Okay, cool. Hmm.
EM energy. So the EMS theory has been adopted by a number of scientists, including Dr. Gary Schwartz, to explain the basis for the existence of the afterlife, spirit communication, reincarnation, out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, and it's gaining tremendous traction.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting. Well, do you differentiate between spirits, angels, ascended masters, goddesses, and other beings of light?
Of course.
Mm.
Of course, the other side is incredibly diverse. There's all forms of non-human spiritual intelligence. There's not just humans, there's animals. People are always surprised when, their pets come through during readings. Um,
It's so
angel.
sweet. I'm sure they're a nice surprise. I'm
Well, one time I was doing a reading for this young lady, and this hamster came through along with this dog, and
sorry. I've
and,
never heard of that.
yeah, and she started crying because she brought the hamster home from school and her dog ate it.
Oh,
And and it was like, well, they seem to be okay now. I mean, it was like, well, that was rather embarrassing.
my. That's
But they
horrible.
came through together. I was doing a reading for a gentleman one time, or this family. They're real country folks. They're really nice people. And their father came through, and all of a sudden there was a big black bear next to him. And I said, there's a bear next to your dad. And the son goes, well, Dad, he done shot himself a big old black bear once. And the bear came through to say, sometimes you're the predator and sometimes you're the prey.
Uh-huh.
And it was really fascinating. I'd never communicated with a bear before. I've communicated with dogs, cats, horses, gerbils, bunnies, birds,
Yeah.
um, all types of warm-blooded creatures. It's my
Yeah.
belief that any being capable of the emotion of love is capable of spirit communication, because love is a higher spiritual function.
Hmm. Yeah, that's cool. And when you're talking about communicating with these animals, you're talking about in the spirit realm or also in life?
In spirit realm.
Oh,
Spirit
okay.
realm.
Yeah. Okay. So, what is Zen success to you?
I think Zen success is when you realize that you're making each day count and that you're being the best you can be. That doesn't mean you're like the best anyone could ever be. It's the best you can be with your skill set. Are you making your corner of the world a more positive place? I believe that's what Zen success is. I spent a fair amount of time in Japan, in Kyoto at the Zen Gardens. And I'll never forget, I was with my friend Billy, and I write about Billy in both Evidence of Eternity and the Afterlife Frequency. And unfortunately, we lost Billy to suicide about 15 years ago. And
Mm,
when I talk about it, it really chokes me up.
yeah.
We're at these Zen gardens at this Buddhist temple, and we're walking around, and they got the stone patterns, the all the little gravel, and the monks are there doing it. And he said, just let it happen. I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, I'm going to go over there. And I sat there, and all of a sudden I went into, I guess, the Zen state, and it felt very similar to when I'm connecting with a spirit. And a voice came to me, and it's not the voice that I hear when I think. It was the voice, I believe, of the divine. And there was a number of messages, but one of the most profound was, life is like a river, flow with it, not against it. And that was a very poignant message at that point in my life, because there was a lot of turmoil going on. And I listened, go with it, don't go against it. Whenever you try to control and take over and nothing seems to go right, well, maybe, just maybe, that is a sign that you need to be paying attention to. That doesn't mean don't do things that are difficult. It's pay attention to the signs.
Mm. That's beautiful. I felt like you took us all there to that Zen garden in Kyoto. Just felt that frequency. Well, it's been such a pleasure connecting with you, Mark, learning about you. And I'll put your website and how to buy your books and programs in the show notes. So visit his website to learn more about his books and programs. Thanks for joining me on the Zen Success Show.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
That's it for today's episode of Zen Success. Head on over to iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you listen to shows. Subscribe to the show and share with friends. Be sure to head on over to ZenSuccessShow.com to help you on your Zen success journey. And join us on the next episode. May you find your own Zen success in life.